Hey guys, this is your boy Mina. Welcome back to the investing series. This is episode number 3, and we're going to be talking about bonds. So if you missed the last episode, we spoke about stocks and what they are and how we can make money. We'll leave a link somewhere right here. And now we're going to talk about bonds. What is a bond? Number 2 is how can I make money with a bond? Number 3 is terms you need to know about bonds. And number 4 is pros, cons, and risks associated with bonds. So what is a bond? So what's a damn bond anyways? A bond is one of the asset classes that we spoke about. So it's a very important and very common asset class. So in essence, it's just a piece of paper that someone gives you in exchange for money. So you're lending someone $100. He gives you a piece of paper saying, I promise I'll pay you back this $100. And then he pays you some interest to entice you to loan him this money. That is it. That's all a bond is. So bonds, you're basically lending somebody some money. There are several types of bonds. There's like government bonds, corporate bonds, there's a whole bunch of types of bonds. But what we need to know about it is you are giving some dollar value to get a piece of paper, or obviously it's not an actual piece of paper, but this bond that promises to pay you back in a certain period of time with an interest attached to it. So let's talk about one of the most common examples. So let's call this a government bond. So the government wants to build some roads or whatever so your shitty Honda Civic doesn't break down every 2 days. What you do is they're asking for money. So you go and you give them $100, and then they say, okay, thank you very much. We're going to go build this road, and we'll give you some dollar values for about 5 years, and we promise to pay you back. So what is the downside to this? Is this money is locked for whatever amount, let's say 5 years. You're not going to get your $100, but they're going to keep paying you some interest. And then at the end of the 5 years, you get the money and they get the road that they want. So it's a win-win situation. Okay, now we're going to talk about how can I make money with bonds. And I'm going to just shove number 3 in there as well. What are the terms to know? I'm too lazy to separate them, but it's easier that way. So let's just walk through the terms that we need to know. So we have 3 terms. Let's talk about the very basic terms. So there's something called face value. Number 2 is maturity. Number 3 is coupon rate. Now, don't pull back on me. These are very simple. They just want to make it sound a little bit more legitimate. So face value is basically the amount of money that you're loaning to the government or the company or whatever, that bond. So we'll call this $100. So this bond, its face value is $100 because you lent them $100. Very easy. The maturity basically means how long you're lending this money to the government. So let's say it's 10 years. So that means its maturity rate is 10 years. Then there's the coupon rate, which is basically how much they're promising you as interest. So let's call it 5%. It's usually annual. So what this means is you lent them $100. You're going to get it back after 10 years. But in the meantime, every year, the government will give you 5%, which is $5 every year until the end of the 10 years. Then they tell you, thank you very much, here's your $100 back. So this is how we can make money, is because we have a fixed return that we already know how much we're going to get for how long, and then you get your initial principal all back. Okay, so you looked at this and you're like, okay, Mina, awesome, I'm going to go right now, I'm going to buy some bonds, let me click away from... All right, chill, relax. I'm the least patient person you will know, and I did the exact same thing, and I lost a lot of money. Just give it a second and understand that this feeling you just got, okay, let me just go, this is the worst thing you can do in investing. You need to be very unemotional and you need to take it easy. So let's get back to it. Enough rambly, more investy. Okay, so before we get into pros and cons, just do me a little favor here and help this shitty little channel of mine. If you just press the like button, okay, I'm not gonna ask for a comment because you folks are just cheap. Just the like, I will appreciate that very much, and then we'll move on, okay? All right, thank you. Pros, okay. So these are some of the pros that are attached to bonds in general. Number 1 is a fixed pre-scheduled payment. So the bond will tell you exactly how much you're gonna get at what day. So, for example, you're gonna get $5 every December 1st, okay? So now you know, and it's very predictable. Number 2 is you know the ROI. So you know the exact amount of return that you're gonna get for your money. So you're gonna give $100 and you're gonna get 5% return on investment. So everything is very clear and set. Number 3 is generally speaking, when we're speaking about like government bonds, it's usually lower risk than stocks and other investment types. Number 4 would be like your initial principal is almost always guaranteed, other than cases, of default, and we'll talk about that later. But generally speaking, your principal is there and you get interest, and at the end of the maturity, you get your principal back. The last one is they're generally more predictable than stocks. If you look at the stock market, it's like boom, 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 up, down is just a bunch of madness. Bonds are way more predictable than this because they have a certain return. They're usually more conservative and they have set dates and set amounts. So now we're going to talk about cons and risks associated with bonds. Number 1 would be a lower rate of return in general. So generally bonds have much lower rate of return than stocks or other investments, and that is shown by the coupon rate. So there's some bonds have a little bit of a higher coupon rate, some have lower coupon rate. Generally speaking, the lower the coupon rate, the safer this investment is. So let's say a coupon rate, like a government one, I wrote 5%, but in reality, like the Canadian coupon rate currently is around the 0.5% ROI, 0.5% return on investment, because it's generally considered very safe. However, if you find a bond with like a 15% ROI because your buddy Brian owns a shitty company and he told you, I promise I'll give you 15%, well, that's cool, but Brian is a piece of shit. He could just go bankrupt at any point in time, but the Canadian government is less likely to do that, hence why you get 0.5%, very, very secure in a way. Brian, on the other hand, we don't know. Maybe he'll give it to you, maybe not, but there you go. That's why there's like a higher risk return ratio in Brian's case. So now, second thing would be face value may decrease with the change of interest rate. So again, you remember the face value we talked about? So face value is your principal. So you loaned the government $100 and now you're owed back this $100 plus the interest. So what happens if all of a sudden the interest rate increases? What does that mean? So the government took it from you at 5%. So they told you, listen man, we'll give you $5 a year and keep the $100 for 10 years. You said, okay, great. Now all of a sudden the interest rates went up. So now the government is giving out, they need more money, so they're giving out 10%. So someone else went and gave them the same $100 and now they're giving them $10 every year as opposed to $5. So what does that mean to your $100? There's two things you can do here. Number 1 is you could just hold it. So don't worry about what's happening. You said 10 years, you're just going to forget it. 10 years, you're still going to get your $100 back and your $5 return. But on the other hand, the other guy, he's getting $10. So if you want to sell or you want to liquidate that bond, you just don't want to wait the 10 years, you're just nervous, whatever the case is, and you want to sell it now. So you have to convince that guy, like why would he buy yours as opposed to go give the government another $100 for 10? So now all of a sudden you have to sell this $100 for only 50. So he can get his same $10 return. Does that make sense? No? Okay, forget about the math, but generally speaking, if the interest rates went up, that means I could get more return from the government, so I won't buy yours unless you decrease your value. So that is a risk associated with bonds as well. Okay, last thing I want to talk about would be the ratings. How do we know this bond is safe, it's not safe? Some people say this government is good, this government is bad. Like, that's all well and good, and you should do your full research. There is indications that would give you at least an insight. It's not fully 100% always true, but it still gives you a better insight, which is called the credit rating. So rating agencies would come and look at the bond. So they're going to look at the Canadian government and they're going to say, okay, these are AAA rated, like we're pretty damn sure these people will pay their debts. And then they look at another company and they give, oh, these guys, they have slight risks of default, so we'll give them a AA or a B or a D or whatever. So in this case, the government gets the highest rating, henceforth a lower rate of return. Shitty Brian here, or what is it, Jason? I don't remember. So Brian here gets probably a D rating because we're not really sure. We're kind of afraid of that guy. Is he going to give us money back? We're not sure. So higher rate of return, but more perceived risk. So that's what the rating agencies do. Still, you have to do your own research because a lot of the time, not a lot, but sometimes they might not be fully correct. Okay, so now you have a general idea of what bonds are, how do we make money from them, what is the pros and cons and risks perceived, and some of the terms here and there. So generally, bonds are a very useful tool in a lot of portfolios. People would use them to diversify their portfolio. So someone who's very aggressive would go more stocks versus bonds. Someone who wants to just save his money is he wants a less aggressive approach. He would buy more bonds, and that's what we normally call asset allocation. So your portfolio is dependent on what you're looking for in your investments, and we'll talk about that in a separate video. But just understand that this is a tool for diversification, hedge against risks in the economy and the stocks. They might go up, they might go down. I want something a little safer. So people would normally diversify that way and in other investments as well. Anyways, don't make any rash decisions. Don't go buy anything. Don't try anything at all right now. We want to first learn about all the asset classes, what we want to do with them, how to make money with each and every one of them. Then we'll start assessing our risk tolerance and understand how to build a portfolio according to our goals. But at this point in time, I would really recommend invest in your own education, invest in this thing, because this thing doesn't go up and down with the economy. I mean, hopefully. But this usually holds its value and it keeps increasing if you keep building it. So this is the best investment you're ever going to make. If you have some money set aside or whatever time, invest it in this first, in yourself, in your education, and then start building your portfolio. That'll be a much better way of doing it, in my opinion. Anyways, that's it for this video. Hopefully short and sweet. Episode 4, we're gonna continue talking about like other asset classes and things of that nature. Subscribe if you haven't. I know some of you are just watching for no reason, not subscribed. Come on, I just have like 90 subs. Just be decent. Thank you. Anyways, we'll see you in the next one. Peace. A bond, like without overcomplicating it, I shouldn't have left the beer. Like a drunk dude. Like a drunk dude talking. Okay.